My dad texted you're out of the family business, so I vanished without a word. They replaced me with my brother 3 weeks later. He nearly got the company sued. I'm Harper Mitchell, 31, and until this moment I thought I was executive vice president of operations at Morrison Steel, the construction company my grandfather built, and I'd spent the last 15 years rebuilding from near bankruptcy. I was sitting across from Janet Rodriguez from the school district, discussing timeline adjustments for the new high school complex, our biggest project, my baby, when my entire world just ended. Harper, Janet's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I stared at my phone screen, waiting for it to change, waiting for a follow-up message that said just kidding or emergency, call me, or literally anything that would make this make sense. Excuse me, I need to. I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward into the wall. Family emergency, I'm so sorry, I have to. I was already walking toward the door, my hands shaking as I tried to call Dad's number, straight to voicemail. I tried again, same thing. In the hallway outside the conference room, I texted back with fumbling fingers. What are you talking about? I'm with Rodriguez, we need to discuss this. The response came immediately, no discussing. Connor is taking over your accounts, don't come to the office. Connor. My 28-year-old brother who'd never successfully managed anything larger than his own apartment, who I'd been covering for since he joined the company 5 years ago, who couldn't read a blueprint if his life depended on it. I called Mom, no answer. I called Connor directly. Oh, hey, Harper. His voice was carefully neutral, like he was talking to a client instead of his sister. Look, this is probably confusing, but Dad will explain everything. It's really better if we don't. Connor, what the hell is happening? I just got a text saying I'm fired. Not fired, restructured. Dad thinks it's time for some changes in leadership, and changes in leadership? I've been running operations for 3 years. I saved this company when Dad nearly bankrupted it with those condos in Hillsborough. A long pause. Harper, you're upset. Maybe we should talk when you've had time to process this. Process this? Process being fired by text message from my own family's company? Connor, I need you to tell me exactly what's happening right now. I can't really get into details, Dad's handling all that, but my understanding is that there have been some concerns about your approach to things, and the board felt, what board? We don't have a board. It's a family company with 3 employees who matter, Dad, you and me. Another pause. Things have changed, Harper. There are new advisors involved, people with experience in family business management. They recommended some organizational adjustments. I felt like I was drowning. Organizational adjustments? You mean firing me? I mean restructuring responsibilities to better align with company vision and long-term strategic goals. He was quoting someone. These weren't Connor's words. He'd never used the phrase strategic goals in his life. Whose words are those, Connor? Who told you to say that? I have to go, Harper. There's a lot to transition, and I hung up on him and immediately called Dad again. Still voicemail. Standing in that office building hallway, watching people walk past me going about their normal Tuesday afternoon while my life imploded, I felt something I'd never experienced before, complete helplessness. For 15 years, since I was 16 and first started working summers at Morrison Steel, I'd always known what to do. Fix the problem, work harder, be better, solve it. This couldn't be solved. This couldn't be worked through or managed or improved with better systems and clearer communication. I'd been erased. I somehow made it through the rest of the meeting with Janet, mumbling apologies and promising to follow up soon, knowing I'd never be able to follow up on anything ever again. When I got to my car, I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, waiting for someone in my family to call me back. Nobody did. I drove to Morrison Steele's offices, my offices where I'd spent more time than my own apartment for the past 5 years. My key card was deactivated. The security guard, Frank, who'd watched me grow up, couldn't meet my eyes as he told me I wasn't authorized to enter. Through the glass doors, I could see Connor in my office, in my chair at my desk, looking through my files like he belonged there. When he saw me watching, he didn't wave or gesture. He just looked at me for a long moment, then slowly closed the blinds. My assistant, Maria, appeared at the entrance with a cardboard box. Inside were my personal items, hastily thrown together, family photos face down, my coffee mug, the hard hat Dad had given me when I made VP, some awards scattered in with random office supplies. They made me pack it really fast, Maria whispered, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Harper, this is wrong, everyone knows this is wrong. I took the box and nodded, not trusting myself to speak. What should I tell people who call for you? She asked. I don't know, I admitted, because I really didn't know anything anymore. I didn't sleep that night, or the next night. I kept checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for someone to call with an explanation or an apology or at least acknowledgement that something terrible had happened to their daughter and sister. The silence was almost worse than the initial text. By Thursday, I couldn't stay in my apartment anymore. I drove around the city, past construction sites Morrison Steel was working on, past buildings I'd project managed, past the Rodriguez school site where work was continuing without me like I'd never existed. I parked across from the community center project, my project, the one I'd fought for through 18 months of city council meetings and environmental impact studies. The sign still read Morrison Steel and Construction, but now it felt like seeing my own gravestone. My phone rang, Connor's name. Harper, look, I know this is awkward, but I need to ask you about the Rodriguez project. There's some kind of issue with the foundation inspection, and I can't find your notes about the soil conditions, and my notes are in the project files. I've looked through everything. I can't find the specific information about the earthquake safety requirements, and the inspector is coming back tomorrow, and I hung up on him. He called back immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message. Harper, please, I know you're upset, but this isn't about our family situation. This is about the project. People are depending on us to get this right, and I just need help understanding the technical stuff. The soil reports are like reading a foreign language, and Dad said you always handled the engineering coordination, so I deleted the message without finishing it. The calls kept coming, from subcontractors confused about new directives, from suppliers asking about changed payment terms, from clients wondering why their project manager wasn't returning calls. I couldn't answer any of them. The non-compete agreement I'd signed when I made VP prevented me from working with Morrison Steel clients or vendors. I was legally obligated to sit silently while Connor destroyed everything I'd built. On Friday, exactly 1 week after the text that ended my career, I finally broke down. Not in a dramatic way, just sitting on my kitchen floor at 2 a.m., crying until I couldn't breathe, feeling like my chest was being crushed. I called my best friend Jessica, who lived in Seattle. Harper, Jesus, it's 2 a.m. Are you okay? No, I whispered. I'm really not okay. I told her everything, about the text, about Connor taking over, about Dad not calling me back, about feeling like I was losing my mind. Have you eaten anything today? She asked. I tried to remember. I don't think so. Harper, you need to take care of yourself. This is trauma. You're in shock. I keep thinking I must have done something wrong, like maybe I was too aggressive in meetings, or maybe I overstepped with Dad somehow, or maybe, stop doing that to yourself. You told me last month that Morrison Steel was having the best year in company history. You told me your dad was finally talking about making you a partner. This isn't about your performance. Then what is it about? I don't know, honey. But it's not about you not being good enough. After we hung up, I sat in my dark kitchen thinking about that conversation. Jessica was right, this wasn't about performance. My projects were successful, our client relationships were strong. The company was profitable, so why was I questioning everything about myself? The weekend was worse. No work to distract me, no purpose to get up for. I found myself checking Morrison Steel's website obsessively, watching as my bio was removed from the leadership team page, watching as my project photos were recaptioned to remove my name. It was like watching myself be erased in real time. Sunday afternoon, I finally got a call from Mom. Harper, sweetheart, I'm so sorry I haven't called. Things have been complicated. Complicated how? Your father is under a lot of stress. There have been some business pressures I don't fully understand, and he's been working with consultants on restructuring options, and I think he felt like changes needed to be made quickly. Changes like firing me? A long pause. He didn't use that word. What word did he use? He said. He said you two had different visions for the company's future, and that it was better to make a clean break rather than let conflicts escalate. What conflicts? We never had conflicts about company vision. I've been implementing exactly what he wanted: growth, profitability, quality projects. I don't know the details, honey, I really don't, but he seems convinced that this was necessary. Convinced by who? Connor, some consultant? Harper, I can't get in the middle of this. It's between you and your father. There is no between me and my father. He won't talk to me. He fired me by text message and then disappeared. Mom started crying. I know this is hard, I know it doesn't seem fair, but maybe this is an opportunity for you to find your own path. You're so talented, Harper, you could work anywhere. I don't want to work anywhere. I want to work at the company I helped save. I want my family to explain why they threw me away like garbage. After Mom hung up, I realized something that made me feel even worse. She wasn't surprised by what had happened. Hurt, yes, sad, definitely, but not surprised, which meant she'd known it was coming. 2 weeks after the termination text, my savings account was getting concerning. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck despite making good money because I'd been putting everything into the condo down payment, expecting to get a partnership stake in Morrison Steel that would provide long-term financial security. That security was gone. The partnership that had been almost finalized was gone. The career I'd built was gone. I started applying for jobs at other construction companies, but the non-compete agreement limited my options. And somehow word had gone around that I'd left Morrison Steel under unclear circumstances. HR people who'd been enthusiastic in initial phone screenings became suddenly distant when they learned my background. I was being quietly blacklisted. 3 weeks after the text, Connor called again. Harper, I really need to talk to you about the Rodriguez project. We're in serious trouble. Morrison Steel, the foundation inspection failed completely. They're saying we need to re-engineer the entire footing system, and the city is threatening to pull our permits if we can't demonstrate compliance with seismic safety standards by next Friday. Despite everything, my stomach dropped. The Rodriguez project was important to the community. Kids needed that school. What does Dad say? Dad doesn't really understand the technical stuff. He keeps telling me to figure it out, but Harper, I don't know what I don't know. The soil reports might as well be written in Chinese, and the structural engineer is asking about modifications you designed, and I can't find documentation for any of it. The documentation is in the shared project folder under engineering coordination. I've looked everywhere, I can't find anything with that name. I closed my eyes. Connor, did you move or rename any of the project files? Well, I reorganized some things to make more sense. You had this really complicated filing system that you reorganized my project files just to make them easier to navigate. But now I can't find the specific information the inspector needs, and if we don't fix this by Friday, we're going to lose the contract. The silence stretched between us. He was asking me to save a project I'd been forbidden to work on at a company that had discarded me without explanation. Harper, are you there? I'm here. Will you help? I know things are weird between us right now, but this is bigger than family stuff. This is about jobs and community impact, and Connor, do you know why I was fired? What do you mean? I mean, do you know the specific reasons Dad gave for terminating me? Did he show you evidence of poor performance or client complaints or financial mismanagement? Did he explain what I did wrong? Another long pause. He said there were philosophical differences about company direction. Philosophical differences, like what? Like you were pushing too hard on the environmental stuff and it was pricing us out of some contracts, and maybe you were more focused on personal recognition than company success. The accusations hit like physical blows. Personal recognition? He didn't say it like that exactly. But he mentioned that you'd been talking to clients about succession planning and positioning yourself as the next generation of leadership, and that made him concerned about your motivations. Connor, Dad asked me to have those conversations. He told me to start preparing clients for his eventual retirement. Oh, genuine confusion in his voice. I didn't know that. What else didn't you know? Harper, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just telling you what Dad told me, and honestly, some of it didn't make sense to me either, but he was really convinced that changes needed to happen fast. Convinced by who? This consultant guy, Thomas Kellerman. He's been working with Dad for a few months on business optimization. Really smart guy with a lot of experience in family business transitions. He helped Dad see some patterns that were concerning. Thomas Kellerman. I'd heard the name but never met him. What kind of patterns? I don't really understand all of it. Something about how family businesses can get derailed when next generation leaders become too independent or start prioritizing their own vision over the founder's legacy. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Connor, do you think I was prioritizing my own vision over Dad's legacy? I think you were just doing your job, but Kellerman has all these case studies and research about how family dynamics can undermine business stability, and after Dad started working with him, he became really worried about control, I guess. Control of what? Control of the company he built. Kellerman convinced him that you were positioning yourself to take over completely and push Dad out. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, and with each detail Connor revealed, the full scope of the manipulation became clear. Thomas Kellerman had systematically poisoned my father against me, using my competence as evidence of disloyalty, my initiative as proof of betrayal. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone, feeling something shift inside me. Not the helpless confusion I'd been drowning in for weeks, but something sharper and more focused. Anger. The family intervention happened at Sunday dinner 3 weeks later. I hadn't been invited. I'd shown up because Mom had been leaving increasingly concerned voicemails about my isolation and unhealthy grieving process. I walked into my parents' kitchen to find Connor, Dad, and a stranger in an expensive suit sitting around the table with folders spread out like they were planning a corporate acquisition. Harper, Mom's voice was too bright, too forced. I didn't know you were coming. Family dinner, I said, looking at the stranger. Unless that's been restructured too. The man stood and extended his hand. You must be Harper, I'm Thomas Kellerman. I've been looking forward to meeting you. I didn't shake his hand. Have you? Dad cleared his throat. Harper, Thomas has been helping us work through some family business challenges. We thought it might be good to all sit down together and clear the air. Clear the air of what exactly? Misunderstandings, Kellerman said smoothly. Emotional reactions to necessary business decisions, family dynamics that have become counterproductive. I looked around the table at these three men discussing me like I was a problematic employee rather than a daughter and sister. Before we clear anything, I said, I'd like to understand exactly what business decisions we're talking about. Because from my perspective, the only decision I'm aware of is being fired by text message without explanation or conversation. Dad's face was already flushing red. Nobody was fired, Harper. We discussed transitioning responsibilities. We never discussed anything. You sent me a text. That was the entire discussion. Because every time I try to talk to you about business matters, you become defensive and argumentative. When have I ever been defensive or argumentative about business matters? Give me one specific example. Dad looked at Kellerman, who opened one of his folders. Harper, your father has shared some concerns about communication patterns that have developed over the past year. Interrupting in meetings, dismissing alternative viewpoints, making unilateral decisions about client relationships. That's not true. But even as I said it, I felt a flutter of doubt. Had I been interrupting in meetings? Was I too quick to shut down ideas I thought were inefficient? Your father mentioned an incident with the Peterson renovation where you overruled his pricing suggestions and went directly to the client with different numbers. Because his pricing would have lost us money, the material cost had changed and the original estimate was based on outdated. See, Dad interrupted. Right there, you can't discuss business disagreements without becoming emotional and defensive. I'm being factual. I was protecting company profitability by going around me to clients by undermining my authority. The argument continued for an hour, with Kellerman occasionally interjecting with observations about family business dynamics and healthy communication patterns. Every example they brought up had been twisted to make my competence look like insubordination, my dedication look like manipulation. Finally, Mom couldn't stand it anymore. Stop it, all of you, just stop it. She was crying, which made me start crying, which made me even angrier. Harper, she said, your father is sick. The room went quiet. What? His heart, the doctors found blockages, severe ones, he needs surgery and the recovery is going to be long and difficult. I stared at Dad, who couldn't meet my eyes. When did you find out? 2 months ago, he said quietly, 2 months ago. Right around when Kellerman started consulting with Morrison Steele. And you didn't tell me? We didn't want to worry you unnecessarily. The doctors said the surgery could wait until we got business affairs in order. Business affairs meaning getting rid of me. Business affairs meaning ensuring continuity of leadership during my recovery period. Kellerman leaned forward. Harper, your father was facing the possibility of extended medical leave with no clear succession plan. That's a crisis situation for any family business. We needed to establish stable leadership structures quickly. Stable leadership structures, you mean Connor? Connor has strong relationships with our traditional client base and understands the company culture your father built. He was the logical choice for interim leadership. Connor has never successfully managed a project worth more than $50,000. Harper, that's unfair, Connor said. I've been learning. Learning what? How to read soil reports, how to coordinate with structural engineers, how to manage cash flow and vendor relationships and regulatory compliance. I'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. Connor, the Rodriguez project is about to fail completely because you reorganized my filing system and lost critical engineering documentation. You're going to figure out how to rebuild client confidence after that disaster? Dad's voice was quiet but firm. The Rodriguez project problems are exactly why this change was necessary, Harper. You built systems that only you could manage. You made yourself indispensable instead of building institutional knowledge that could survive your absence. The accusation was so backwards it took my breath away. I made myself indispensable. I created detailed documentation for every process. I trained Connor on project management procedures. I set up systems specifically designed to be transparent and transferable. Systems that are apparently too complicated for anyone else to understand. Or Connor didn't pay attention during training because he assumed he'd never need to do the actual work. That's enough, Dad said, standing up. This is exactly the kind of attitude that made this transition necessary. You can't discuss business matters without attacking Connor or questioning my judgment. Your judgment? Dad, you're dying. I'm not dying. And instead of preparing your daughter, who's run operations for 3 years, to take over during your recovery, you handed the company to your son, who doesn't understand the basic technical requirements of our work. That's not judgment. That's gender bias disguised as family tradition. The silence that followed was deafening. Kellerman cleared his throat. Harper, I understand you're emotional about this situation, but accusations of gender bias aren't helpful for family healing. Family healing? You've spent months poisoning my father against me, manufacturing evidence that I was disloyal, and positioning Connor as the solution to problems that didn't exist until you created them. I've helped your family recognize dynamics that were threatening business stability. You're a con artist who preys on family businesses by exploiting insecurity and fear of change. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough, Thomas is trying to help this family, and all you can do is attack everyone who doesn't agree with your version of events. My version of events? Dad, what has Connor accomplished since taking over? Give me one specific success. Silence. The Rodriguez project is behind schedule and over budget. 2 suppliers have changed payment terms because Connor doesn't understand our credit arrangements. 3 potential clients have canceled preliminary meetings because Connor couldn't answer basic technical questions. Growing pains, Kellerman said. Transition periods are always challenging. These aren't growing pains, this is incompetence enabled by sexism. I stood up, looking at each of them. You 3 men decided that a company needed male leadership, so you manufactured justifications for removing the woman who was actually providing leadership. And now you're surprised that performance has declined. Harper, sit down, Dad said. We're not finished? Yes, we are. I'm finished pretending this is about business optimization or family dynamics or anything other than your inability to accept that your daughter is better at this job than your son. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Connor, the structural engineer for Rodriguez, is meeting with the city inspector on Tuesday at 10 a.m. The seismic calculations are in the red folder marked Engineering Review. Do not move. The backup soil analysis is in my desk, bottom drawer, labeled Rodriguez Geotechnical. You'll need both documents to pass inspection. Connor looked surprised. You're helping me? I'm helping the community that's counting on that school, but this is the last time. Figure out your own problems after Tuesday. I left them sitting around that table with their consultant and their justifications and their traditional leadership structures. But as I drove home, I wasn't thinking about vindication or revenge. I was thinking about how much it hurt to watch my family choose comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths, how exhausting it was to defend my competence to people who should have been celebrating it. And I was thinking about something Kellerman had said that was probably truer than he realized. Family businesses fail when emotion overrides logic. The emotion overriding logic in this situation wasn't my anger about being fired. It was Dad's fear of being replaced. The Rodriguez project barely passed inspection. Connor called, voice shaking. I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. Then learn the skills. From who? You're the only one who understands this stuff. Take courses, hire an operations manager, read the manuals. Dad won't approve hiring anyone. Budget constraints. He'll have bigger constraints when you lose more contracts. 3 weeks later, Dad had his surgery. I visited once when he was too weak to argue. I might have made some mistakes, he whispered. About what? Business decisions, family decisions, trusting people who don't care about Morrison Steel like we do. Kellerman, he's been billing massive consulting fees, more than Connor's salary. His advice generated billable hours, not solutions. What if you just talked to me about your health fears? You would have helped figure out a plan. Instead of firing me, instead of letting a stranger convince me my daughter was my enemy, he started crying. Can we fix this? The fix was slow. Kellerman was terminated. Connor moved to business development where his people's skills mattered. Dad gave me operational control with a formal apology, but personal healing was harder. Months of therapy for Dad to acknowledge what he'd done, months for me to stop feeling angry, almost a year for Connor and me to rebuild mutual respect. 2 years later, Morrison Steel won the State Excellence Award. During my speech, I thanked our team and family business values. I didn't mention the text that destroyed my world or the consultant who nearly destroyed our company or questioning my worth while everything crumbled. But holding that award, I thought about foundations again, how they need to be solid but flexible, how the strongest structures are rebuilt after damage, reinforced with knowledge of what can go wrong. Dad was in the audience, healthy and proud. Connor was successful in his new role. Mom was crying with joy. We looked like a normal family celebrating success. But I knew something they didn't. My worth wasn't determined by their approval. My competence didn't depend on their validation. I'd survived the worst betrayal imaginable and emerged stronger. The text that shattered my world had also freed me from needing to prove myself to people who should have believed in me all along. You're out of the family business, Dad had written. I'd replied, understood. And I had understood eventually. My value existed independently of their recognition. Family love and family business are different things. Success in one doesn't guarantee fairness in the other. Most importantly, the strongest foundation I could build was inside myself. Unshakable confidence in my abilities, clear boundaries about acceptable treatment, and knowledge that I could survive even when everyone I trusted let me down. The family business that once defined me became just one part of my identity, and that made all the difference.